Hi there, I'm Martha Maurer with KTAR News and KTAR.com. We are from the KTAR News live desk, and I'm actually joined by a very special guest today, Brian Watson. He is a special agent with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, Phoenix Field Division. So he's here to tell us everything that you need to know for this tax season, the do's and don'ts, and things to watch out for. So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And let's get started by explaining to our listeners and our viewers the things that they need to be aware of this tax season. We're coming up on, when's the deadline?
April 17th.
Okay. So what are some of the things that they need to be looking for right now?
Watch out for the scammers out there. The biggest thing we're seeing right now is the phishing scams, phony emails, text messages, trying to trick people into sending personal information to the IRS. First thing to remember, we don't contact you by phone or by email. If we need to get a hold of you, we're going to send you a letter explaining the situation.
But this is nothing new. I mean, we've talked and we've reported here on KTAR of scam after scam. Why is it that the IRS continues to put this message out? Are you continuing to see more people fall victims to it?
The criminals out there are relentless. They've been doing the IRS impersonation scam for almost 5 years now. We know of over $64 million that's been lost in the scam. And they just keep calling because it doesn't cost them any money. And they just threaten people over the phone with deportation or losing their driver's license or a lawsuit or an arrest.
That's the impersonation scam.
That's the impersonation scam. And why do they do it? Well, because it works. And at first they seem to target certain people. Now they're calling everybody. They've called my government-issued BlackBerry. They've called my mom and dad. But I've trained my parents to hang up. And so I'm always asking people when I do these media reports, I always ask, who do you know that could fall for this scam? You know, is it a family member? Is it a friend? Is it a neighbor? Just tell them the IRS will not call and demand money over the phone. We're going to send you a letter explaining the situation.
And usually, so let's kind of maybe run through an example. So my phone rings, and on the other end is a person saying, "Hey, I'm from the IRS."
Yes.
What are some of the common threats that they give out?
Well, sometimes it'll be a robocall, meaning like it sounds like a machine, and sometimes
like
it's a live
money.
person, right? And they'll say, "This is your last warning. I'm Officer so and so," and they'll give a name. You know, sometimes they'll have an accent, sometimes they won't.
It sounds official.
It does. Well, it sounds threatening.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're preying on immediacy and fear of like law enforcement or the IRS, and they want you to do everything now.
So what kind of things do they want you to do?
So if they get you to buy into their little scheme, they keep you on the phone and they want you to pay off the money right now. So they keep you on the cell phone. They have you actually drive down to your local store and buy a prepaid card or buy a money order and send them the money. Or you'll give them the numbers off the prepaid card, and then they basically drain the card, and by the time you get off the phone, that money's gone.
You know, when I hear that of somebody saying, "Stay on the phone with me, go buy some gift cards or some Visa cards and give us the info," to me it's like an automatic red flag. Yet you have victims that you know that continues to happen to them, and you know that this continues to. Is there a particular group in Arizona that falls victim to these kind of predators the most?
You know, I don't know, because we're actually not the agency that investigates it. So I just hear stuff anecdotally. Like I met someone who works in my building in Tucson, and his parents fell for it. So, you know, most people think the most vulnerable to this are people that are older. But then I also read a USA Today article that talked about college-age kids falling for the scam. But I think the most vulnerable are people who maybe aren't financially savvy, maybe who live by themselves, and probably who are older, but maybe, you know, diminished mental capacity. But then also, hey, if someone's new to the country and they don't know how the IRS works, and it sounds official, and, you know, people want to, you know, they're preying on the fact that people want to follow the law and they don't want to get in trouble. And you've got to figure most people hang up on these criminals.
Right.
They only have to be lucky once or twice a day to put food on their table. So most people are hanging up. So we're not going to stop them by arresting all of them. We can't, because I mean, think about the Nigerian email scams that are still going on after 20 years. What we do, how we are going to stop it, is by just drying up the pool of potential victims.
And you mentioned the IRS will never call you to demand payment for what you owe. So
Right.
what are the avenues, the official ways that the Internal Revenue Service will contact you with to be able to square your debt away?
We are going to send you a letter by U.S. Postal Service. It's going to have your name, your address on there. It's going to explain exactly the issue that's going on with your returns, what we need, and it gives you a chance to challenge it. I received one of those letters a few years ago when I sold a house and I forgot to include something. I got a little nervous when that letter came in the mail. I thought, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? But it was very clear. I made some copies out of my escrow file. I included them in there, and I sent it back to the IRS. And a month or two later, I got a letter saying everything was cleared. So the system works. And so, but they continue to send these, the emails, the text messages, just trying to trick people into clicking on links, trying to get personal information to either steal your credit or file a tax return.
And so it seems a little outdated and old school that you have to rely on making sure you have a letter in the mail. I know that most of my mail is spam, so but it's important to continue to be on the lookout. Now you mentioned that the way that you cleared up the little mishap was by keeping very good records.
Yes.
So talk to us more about what people that are considering, that are putting together the stuff that they need for their filing of their taxes come April or before April. What are some of the do's and don'ts, the things that you suggest people do even before tax season arrives, and especially during tax season?
You want to keep really good records, especially for donations or business expenses. If you're a small business owner, a lot of times, if like a Schedule C, a sole proprietorship, you can deduct mileage. So what you really want to do is keep a really good mileage log. So if you're ever questioned on your business mileage, you can back it up. If you give to a charity, keep copies of your credit card statements or the receipts you get from the companies. The more information you have, it protects you and you can sleep better at night. And then you want to keep these records for most people at least 3 years, because a tax return can go back for an audit 3 years. But if it's a business, I usually recommend about 7 years. And then if it involves like buying or selling a property, you want to keep those things for the lifetime of the asset or the property itself.
Now we are in a digital age.
Yep.
Do you see the number of people filing electronically continue to go up, or are they choosing to, perhaps with all those problems with data breaches and the scare that we all feel sometimes by putting our information out there in the internet sphere, what kind of trends are you seeing?
So electronic filing, the percentage keeps going up every year. We're at 87% now.
Wow.
And I don't know if that number will ever get to 100, because not everyone has a computer and some people just want to do their tax return on paper. But it's the safest way to do it. If you file electronically, your tax return is not going to get lost in the mail, or someone's not going to intercept it from the mailbox. The IRS is going to get it much quicker. The error rate is much lower on an electronically filed return, and it also saves the government money, which in fact saves all of us money. So, but eventually we'll all get to the point where it's pretty much normal. I mean, at one point, electronic filing was actually piloted here in Arizona years ago. They pilot things like that, and then it worked, and then we use it. But I just see that number going up in the next few years.
Is there anything else, Brian, that our listeners and our viewers should keep in mind when preparing for that big important date and beyond?
Go to irs.gov. I mean, we have our 800 number, 800-829-1040, You can call and get help there, but the quickest way is to go to irs.gov. Any form you need is going to be there. Publications, instructions, there's YouTube videos, there's all the press releases on our scams are out there. It's the best place to go. I work for the IRS and I use our website all the time because it has a great wealth of information there.
And one of the things that I've heard a long time ago that I continue to try to keep in mind is also when you're looking for a tax preparer, that it's somebody that has a good reputation, that's not just going to pop up during taxes and then go away, right? Do you ever hear of any cases where perhaps people were scammed by their tax preparer?
Absolutely. The vast majority of return preparers out there are honest and ethical. They're very good at what they do. Like if I had an electrical problem at my house, I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to hire a professional. Same thing. If you have a complicated tax situation, it's a very good idea to use a paid return preparer. 55% of Americans use the paid return preparers. There's just a very few of them that keep us busy. We actually work criminal cases against these return preparers who put fraudulent items on the tax returns. They do it for a variety of reasons. They do it to get a bigger refund so they can justify a bigger a bigger return preparation fee, and then they also do it to just draw volume to their business. If everybody in the neighborhood's talking about this big tax refund that they're getting, they're going to get more and more people that come to their door. So just be very leery of anybody who promises a huge refund without ever looking at your information, or even worse, someone who bases their fee, their preparation fee, on a percentage of your tax refund.
Interesting, yeah, and in the end, it's once you sit down with somebody that you develop a trust, hopefully that you'll be able to feel strong and to visit the Better Business Bureau, because they do have ratings for some of these businesses, right?
Right, and then actually on IRS.gov, you can actually look up on, we have return preparers listed on there who we've basically given the approval that have met certain standards. But really the biggest thing is ask around. If you were new to town, how would you find a new doctor or dentist? You're not just going to open up the phone book and pick the name that looks interesting. No, you're going to ask your friends, your neighbors, your family members, see who's got a reputation, who they trust, who they've known for a long time, and use them.
Okay, so remind us once again, when's the deadline, and what have you missed the deadline?
April 17th. You can file an extension. And even if you don't have the money to pay, you still want to file, even if you owe money, and then the IRS will bill you. But that way you're not going to have a late fee. But it's April 17th this year.
All right, so there you have it. Don't miss the deadline, and find more information on KTAR.com.
I'm Bob McClay. Here's our top story.